Welcome back to the Sam Acho Podcast featuring Clif Marshall. This is a place and a space where we go first, we give space, and we grow hope. We talk about faith, family, football, and finances. And today we have a very, very special guest. And as we usually do on most episodes, Clif, please introduce our special guest.
Yes, Sam, we are so fired up today because we have Casey Phillips with us. Casey is a Mizzou Tiger alumni. She's a current reporter for the Tampa Bay Bucks. She has also spent time with the LA Rams and the Washington Wizards. She loves Jesus, and we are thrilled to have her on the Sam Acho Podcast today. So, Casey, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. And just Sam was a light in the building here in Tampa when he was here. So just so pumped to watch him now with the broadcast career and to get a chance to be a part of the podcast. I feel like the roles have reversed here.
I know. Before we press record, I said, Casey, I need you to give me a grade. So like hindsight, people don't know. And it didn't dawn on me or occur to me until we were about to press record. But Tampa Bay was the last place that I played in the NFL. So I played 9 years in the NFL. And my last year, the last half of the season, I thought my career was done. I was ready to retire and move on and just move on with my life. I got a call from Bruce Arians, who was my coach in Arizona. But fast forward, he was the coach in Tampa Bay. And I mean, so much so where my time in Chicago had come to an end. I tore my pec. I was out for the year. I had signed a multi-year deal, but I got cut 1 year into my 2-year deal. First time I'd ever been cut. We went to Buffalo. I was training with the Bills. I was in training camp, right, playing with Josh Allen, all these guys. And I got cut from the Bills. And this point, I'm like, dude, what is going on? And I'm ready to be done. I remember telling my wife, like, hey, babe, let's just hang it up, right? Like, let's just be done, move on. And she says, I don't think that God's done with us yet. And I'm like, well, I pray too. So like, but fast forward, we stayed in Buffalo for about, I haven't shared this story a ton, but we stayed in Buffalo for about 2 months. And I kind of made this deal. I said, you know what? I told my wife, I said, babe, I will stay here until it gets cold. And when it gets cold, I'm going back to, there's like some venture capital stuff I was going to go do. Also, I'm going to go do that and start a new life. And so essentially, like, it got cold. And so we packed up all our stuff. We had just purchased the home that we were renting in Chicago before when I was playing with the Bears. We purchased it. And so we were going to put it on the market, rent it out, do some real estate stuff. And we drove back to Chicago. It was my first time, if you want to say it that way, like away from football. We drove I think I had the conversation with her on a Friday. Hey, let's be done. On Saturday, we drive back to Chicago, right from Buffalo to Chicago. I don't know how many, 8, 10, 12 hours, whatever the drive was. And on Sunday morning, I couldn't even watch the NFL. I mean, it was just like, that whole season, I've been angry and frustrated and upset and confused. I mean, just all the different emotions of losing something that you spent your whole life doing. And I remember it was on that Sunday, and on the Monday, I was going to move to Minnesota. My buddy had this opportunity for me and some venture capital stuff. And I was like, boom, let's do it. And I had a flight on Monday at like 4 p.m. As most people know, Casey, you know this, Clif, you know this, you spent 3 decades in the sports world. Sunday is when the NFL games are played. And if people get injured, you don't know about their injuries until Monday. It's when they go get their MRIs, et cetera. And so I'd fired my agent. So I was the one calling teams. I spent 2 months calling teams. Nobody was picking up nothing. And all of a sudden, Monday afternoon around 1 or 2 p.m., I get a call from someone with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Q called me. And he said, hey, Sam, as you know, we have 4 outside linebackers. 2 of them got injured in the game yesterday. Do you want to come and work out? Mind you, I had made the decision in my mind that I was going to be done. But at that moment, he said, do you want to work out? And I remember he's 6 now, but he was 1 at the time, was crying. I was trying to register our washing machine that we were going to, and all of a sudden I said, hey, can I call you back? I said, can I call you back? Mind you, and it wasn't because I didn't want to go to Tampa, but it was really just this idea of like, hey, God, I wanted to go out on my own terms. I wanted to say, hey, I said no to the NFL. And what if this is my opportunity to say no to the NFL? Well, I remember I said, let me call you back. He said, oh, I get it. I hear your baby crying in the background, but yeah, sure, give me a call back. I prayed, and I felt, I think our listeners will resonate, Casey will resonate, Clif. It's like this, I felt this kind of like voice, if you will, that felt something that was just like, Say yes. Say yes. And I remember going downstairs and sharing with my wife, and she kind of gave the thumbs up. I had my 10-year-old's probably 6 at the time. I'm like, hey, do you want daddy to go play? He's like, no, daddy, stay home. But I said yes. And I go and I worked out with Tampa Bay. I signed with Tampa Bay, and I spent the last 8 games of the season with the Buccaneers playing on defense, on special teams. And that was when I got a chance to meet Casey. And Casey, you started off this podcast by saying that I was a light in the locker room and in the city. You are a light in the locker room and in the city and everything you do at the stadium, at the facility. I mean, I didn't know a lot of people who were following Jesus on the team. I just didn't know. That team was a very young team, and it was kind of, the culture was different. I thought my purpose there was just to kind of help lead and guide some of the younger players. But you stuck out, Casey. And I don't even, like I said, I don't even know how I knew that you were a follower of Jesus, but something about you continued to shine. And so I'm so honored. That's my long-winded way of saying thank you for joining the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I mean, I can't think of a better compliment than what you just said. And I appreciate it. I don't know for sure how you knew. My guess is a lot of times, new player comes in and my job is to just, professionally creep on Google to learn all the things about everybody. And so I know that, when I researched you, when you joined, that I knew that you were a believer. And so usually when that happens, if I've seen that a player is outspoken about it, I will usually then approach to just say hey, me too. Let me know if you need a church. Let me know if you need this. Just to, especially when you're new, I always like guys to know, hey, I'm here for you in that area. If you need a church, if your wife needs a place to take the kids on a Sunday morning when you're playing, whatever. And so I think I'm guessing I most likely, had one of those moments with you of hey, me too. But I wanted to show that you gave me this.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
So this is, you said 5 years ago, right? Six years, it was 2019. Does that sound right?
Yeah, 2019, my last year. Yep, 5-6 years ago.
So you gave a bunch of the guys on the team one of these. You gave the whole locker room practically. These just showed up on every guy's chair, whether they wanted it or not. I think you were just here. And then you were so kind and gave me one as well, which I thought was so cool. And it's been amazing because I have literally been reading this for 5 years. And what's really cool is there are certain, I write and underline all over it, but it was cool. I got to tell my husband that I was coming on with you. I'm like, this is who gave me this Jesus calling, because there are days and years, I pull one up where I'll write the year and then the thing. And so I get to track through the years what I was what I got out of that day, what I was praying about. And then I've gotten to watch as answers have come to the different things. And so this is one of my most prized possessions, and you were who gave it to me. So thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, that makes me so glad. I'm starting to tear up a little bit because that book, that Jesus Calling book, Casey, that devotional got me through some seasons. That devotional got me through some seasons of life. Sure, some highs, but those are some low lows. I could talk about whether being released or being injured and not knowing what was next. It was almost just it's 2 paragraphs and a couple verses, and it's as if Jesus is speaking to you. And for whatever reason, and you resonate with this as well, it's perfect timing. It's perfect timing. And so I got to pick mine got torn and tattered and all these things. I got to pick mine back up. But man, thank you for sharing that and showing that.
Yeah, I was so glad I remembered to bring it in. But yeah, this thing it's so true. And I think that is what's so cool about a thing that you go back to, is how often we don't go back to things to even always remember and recognize when we got answers, that we just get the answer sometimes and move on, and remembering both to be grateful, but then also the next time that there is a challenge, the next time there is a thing, we've got that evidence. We've got that. Well, I saw that this year this happened. Man, this is back when I was praying. For me, let me tell you, there are some days where I was praying for a husband in this devotional, and now I have him, and he has all the things I prayed for. And I always love pointing that out to him. Then I'm like, look at this, babe. I was really praying about this one here. So, yeah, it's just so cool to have those moments where you get those things answered and those prayers answered, to be able to then now the next time you're praying for something, it's well, obviously, I look at all this evidence already.
Wow, Casey, it's abundantly clear that the faith that you have is so important to you. I just wanted to know, is it something that happened in your childhood, or have you Was you brought up in the church, or did you come to Christ a little bit later on in your life? What was your journey like, following Christ?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I was raised in the church. I mean, like Sam, I'm a Texan. You know how that is. There's one on every corner.
Every corner.
Yeah, it's not do you go to church, it's where, right? That was the question. So yeah, I mean, I definitely grew up in church. I always say that it became my own in high school, that I went to a youth group event and that I got tricked into going to because I was told there was barbecue there. That's how they get you in Texas too. They promise barbecue. And I didn't even know what I was going to. And it was the first time I ever heard like contemporary Christian music, because our church was very hymns, pews, robes, formal stuff. And I saw these people that I knew from school raising their hands, eyes are closed. And I'm like, what in the world is happening? Like, I was kind of weirded out by it. I was like, I don't understand what's going on. But these are all people that I know, and I know they're not crazy. So like, what would be causing this? And I started listening to the words of the song and just trying to figure out like what would make these people react that way. And just in that moment, I had the first time ever this understanding of God's love for me individually and care for me, and like the depth of that and what that would mean. And it just, I can't explain it, but it just, that moment, that was it that I had. It was the first really emotional understanding and connection of what a faith like this would mean for me, as compared to just, yeah, we go to church, I check this box. And that was it, that there was no looking back. I think that was when I was about 14 or 15. And that's when it really became a priority in my life from there.
Wow. What, I think working in the NFL, Sam, you played in the NFL, Casey, you're in the NFL right now. I guess on game day, I coached in the NFL, Casey, for a few years with the Cincinnati Bengals. You could see the Bengals stuff behind me. I've also spent time in college basketball, so I've done both. But I just know in the NFL, certainly on game day, I used to see the players, pray pregame or postgame, and I just know faith is so important to the athletes and everybody who works in the NFL, so to speak. So Casey, I guess for you, how do you use, your faith in your career as a reporter for the Tampa Bay Bucs?
Yeah, for me, it's always been really important that my faith is shown in how I do everything, that we're Christians 24/7. And I don't think it has to mean beating people over the head with it, but I just want to know that everything I do, if people find out I'm a Christian, that makes sense in their mind for how I'm carrying myself. And especially for me, it's the way that, I am telling people stories, and there is nothing more personal than that, more important than that, is that I know the trust that means of players and coaches and people putting their reputations, their stories, their public image sometimes in my hands when I do these interviews and these podcasts. And so for me, it's that I will always choose what I think is the godly way to handle a relationship with everybody here, the types of questions I ask, that I'm never going to sacrifice, the way that I think God is calling me to love him and love these people in it for the sake of views or clicks or numbers. Like, I want the way we handle an interview to make whoever it was feel like they were cared for and loved. That so often athletes are not treated like people, right? That the way people talk about them online, the way people treat them, I want them to walk away feeling like now the fans are going to see their humanity and what matters to them and their family and their friends. So just making sure that I take extreme care with how I treat all my coworkers, how I treat everyone, and how I tell their stories, because I know that's a really big deal to be putting that in my hands. And I also knew that for me, I was going to want to invite players to go to church. I was going to want to offer to pray for players. And if I have now done a story saying all this negative stuff about you or not being honorable in how I did that, like, are you kidding? Can you imagine I put out this story where I'm like bashing some player, and then I'm like, hey, by the way, do you want to go to church with me tomorrow? They're going to be like, what? And I just knew that I wanted the way I did my job to line up with, if I was going to invite them to church, that there was no contradiction there.
Casey, how do you, I know Clif's got a couple, but I just want to, because I'm in this space now. The media, I went from being a player, now I'm reporting and in media. And as you know, there's so much that goes into clicks and likes and getting the being the first to tell a story. What is your priority when it comes to being successful? And I wasn't going to say in your job, but like, I guess, how do you view success? What do you view as success?
I think for specifically my job, I view success as a couple things. If I get the player, or especially maybe their mom, to tell me that they love how I portrayed them in something. If I get a player's family member to say they love the interview I did with their son or their brother or whatever, I'm like, what a win. And then it's also for me when like I had a mom message me about her daughter who was asked a school assignment, write a woman that she wanted to be like someday. And she picked me, and she sent me this essay her daughter had written that she was 8 years old and that why she wanted to be like me. So then I think like, do I feel like I want her to be like me? Is success to me is that I can say that I want that 8-year-old girl to do everything that I do. And I would be happy about that I would feel good about that if she wants to be like me. And so it's that I do my job in a way that I feel like I've done it in an honorable way where I can say to the next generation of girls, do like I did and feel good about that. And then that the players and their families are happy with the way that I've told their story.
Very good. Casey, I have to ask, I see you worked with the Washington Wizards, and now you're obviously in the NFL with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Again, I've spent time in both football and basketball as a strength and conditioning coach. So I just got to ask you, what did you enjoy more, working in the NBA or currently working in the NFL?
Ooh, that's tough. My schedule liked the NFL better. Let me tell you that. That's for sure. Especially because when I was there, I was also covering the Washington Mystics at the same time. So we had no off season, that we went straight from NBA to WNBA. And that's part of why I only lasted 2 years there, is I was like, I think I'm going to die if I continue in this trajectory. So then I got an offer to go to the NFL, and I was like, 17 at the time, you did 16 games compared to 80 something with, the NBA and then all those WNBA games later. So I from a schedule standpoint, obviously NFL is better, but basketball was my love. It's what I played. It's my favorite sport in the world. So like, and it was funny. I was more starstruck covering the WNBA than like the NBA or NFL, because those were so many of the women I had grown up idolizing and watching and wanting to be like. And so it's funny how that was actually the times I had to be like, Casey, get it together. Like, it's all right. Like, those were the people. So I really loved getting to start my career covering a sport that I was so familiar with, that I felt so knowledgeable about. Football, I definitely had a lot I had to learn once I got here. So it took a lot of work from just an X's and O's standpoint, not having played it. But yeah, they both are really cool in their own ways. I loved basketball, but having 53 people to tell stories about is really great as compared to only, we had at the time, it's like 12 guys on the team, and only like 9 were actually dressing and playing even on any given night, or, more dressing, but 9 guys get in the rotation. You got 80 something games. You are just having to interview the same guy over and over and over and over. And whereas at least football, you have more people to choose from and more stories.
Casey, how did you get into the industry?
Man, I am convinced that God just wanted me to do this job, because there are so many things about it that I'm like, this is wild how it all worked out. But I knew when I was very young, I wanted to do some form of broadcasting. So I was just at my parents this weekend, and we found these old photos of me anchoring the news at my middle school when I was 11 and 12. But back then I wanted to be Katie Couric. And I think it's especially because that's what was like, you just could see that more, that there were more women doing that kind of a broadcasting job than there were on the sports side. And people would even recommend that, you should be like Katie Couric, which is great. But I think that's what everyone kept kind of pushing. And then my high school also had a kind of broadcast station at it. And my teacher for that class was like, hey, I give one student the chance to interview for some internships every year. I know this is what you actually want to do. She goes, I want to be clear. You won't get them. You're 17. You're going to be interviewing against college graduates. Like, it's just so you get some experience in the door. And she said, so I'm going to let you interview with the Dallas Mavericks and with Fox Sports Southwest. And I was like, why have I not thought about doing sports? It was like this light bulb went off. Like, I played every sport. I loved sports. And I loved that it took a woman also suggesting sports to me, that at that time, that just wasn't as much of a thing. So I went and interviewed for both internships, and I got both of them at 17, which is, again, I'm like, clearly God wanted me to do this, because I was not necessarily the most qualified. I'm sure I wasn't. I was 17, but I went and did both of them. So I worked both internships that summer. And then from there, it was like I got in the door and I just knew all these people. So from 17 to 22, I did Fox Sports Southwest 3 different summers. The Mavericks, I did 2 different summers with the Dallas Cowboys. I did CBS in Dallas 2 different summers, all just from kind of knowing everybody once you get into that industry there. And then right as I was about to finish college, I'm like, man, I've done 1,000 internships. I'm finally going to get paid to do this career when I finish. And I tore my ACL right before graduating. And I had some chats. I was unhappy about this. I was like, I don't understand. You've always made it so clear. This is what you want me to do. Like, how can this happen? And, because to be a reporter, especially right out of the gate, I needed to be carrying all my camera gear and shooting myself and, sitting down on the baseline. I physically couldn't do the job. So I took an internship with Disney Sports PR. And I remember at the time being terrified that was going to derail my whole career. That you feel like if you get out of broadcasting for any amount of time, like it's just over before it started. And I was so afraid I was going to get pigeonholed into just more the PR side. And but that internship, right after I applied for the Wizards blindly, didn't know anybody, applied online. I found out 300 other people applied at least, and they gave it to me. And I remember asking them, like, I'm thrilled you did. Can you tell me why me? And they said, well, everyone that applied had broadcast experience, but because of your work at Disney, you also had done social media and PR and marketing. And those are all things that when you work for a team, you're going to have to do all of those. So everyone had broadcast experience, but only you had this thing. And I just remember hearing God. I pictured this expression of him going, that's what I pictured. Where the thing that I had been so mad and I was so frustrated and didn't understand the plan, and to finally all of a sudden see that, like, what I thought was going to ruin and derail this whole plan and career, God knew that was exactly the thing that I needed to get it started. And it got me into this team reporter route, which was just being created at the time. When I graduated, these team reporter roles didn't even really exist yet. That 1 year I did at Disney was when they started getting created. And so my job with the Wizards, and then at the time, basically the Wizards and Celtics were like the only ones that had this team reporter role. And it let me break in right as these were being formed. And so my job with the Wizards, my job with the Rams, and then my job with the Bucks, I was the first person to get to have all 3 of them, that they were these brand new created roles. And it just always made me think about how, like, man, God can open doors. You don't, like, I didn't even know to expect these kind of jobs when I was in college. And it just all worked out perfectly timing wise.
To me, that sounds, Clif, like a Clif note. Usually what we do, Casey, on this podcast is Clif shares his Clif notes. And I know we're not even close to being done yet, but Clif, what Clif note do you have from what we just heard from Casey?
Well, I think she just pretty much summed it up. I think we work as if it's up to us, but we pray as if it's up to God. Like in our career, Sam, you as an NFL player, Casey, you as a NFL broadcaster and reporter. I mean, and even me as a coach, you can reflect back on your journey. You reflect back on your career, and you can look at God's hand has been with you the entire way. And so I think the Clif note for me today, at least for this podcast, is work as if it's up to you, but pray as if it's up to God.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Mark Batterson says that all the time. He was my pastor when I lived in D.C.
Wow.
Yep.
I know he's put some great books out there, and have a ton of respect for him, for sure. I did want to ask you, Casey, about your journey. And if you just go back again, you mentioned you were 17 years old. What would you tell 17-year-old Casey as you reflect back right now?
Yeah, I think I would say it's going to turn out even better than you imagine. That, I think one of my favorite verses is the Ephesians 3:20, if he's able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. And I think that it's also the fact that the back half of that verse is that according to his power at work within us, where it's like, we love to think about he's just going to do more for me. But it's like according to the idea of if you're allowing like him to work through you as well. And that I think I would say back then of like, hey, as long as you're walking with him, it is going to turn out even better than you can ever imagine. Whatever your plans are, it's going to be even better. And that includes the things that are not fun at the time. Like, would I want to tear my ACL? No. But would I now change that for anything? Absolutely not. I would tear it all over again because of the direction that it brought me and the way that it formed this stuff now of where like God can use even those, hardest kind of darkest things to take you where he wants you to go. So, and then I think would tell, 17-year-old Casey, one of my favorite things to guide me when making decisions is something I heard Andy Stanley say one time of just ask yourself, what does love require of me? That I think as Christians, like that's the question that when we get ourselves in a bind or we don't know what God wants us to do, maybe of just like, God's made it so clear our job is just to love him and love other people. And so if you're not sure what to do at any point in your life, what does love require of me? And that's, I think, some of the best advice.
Casey, we talk. Thank you so much for sharing that. We talk about adversity a lot on this podcast. You've shared a little bit about tearing your ACL right before your dream job and how it worked out. But on the outside, I see, Casey, she's always got a smile on and she's a reporter for the Bucs. And now she's married and she won a Super Bowl with Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski and all the things. But there are some things behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about. Can you share with us a little bit about your journey with some of the autoimmune diseases that you've dealt with?
Yeah. So, ironically, it was right when I met you was when all of it was happening. So again, the things that you don't know at the time about somebody. So I, in the summer of 2019, just suddenly had massive health stuff going on out of the blue, where I went down to, I'm 5'8". I went down to 111 pounds, which is wild. And I will spare you all the details. But it was bad. And I got put in the ER a couple times. It was really rough. And I ended up getting diagnosed with what's called ulcerative colitis. So a lot of people have heard Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. They're very similar things. And it was, I was in pretty bad shape and they had to put me on just wild amounts of steroids to try to bring it down, which was super fun as a broadcaster because it made my face get all puffy and it caused me to have like acne everywhere. And I was like, this is great. Everything is fine. But I remember just at the time, like one of my first thoughts was like, am I going to get to still do this job? I mean, there's anyone that has heard of or knows anything about ulcerative colitis, like you have no idea what that's going to do to it's different for every person and what that can look like. And I'm reading about it and just even the way it got delivered to me, I woke up from getting, a colonoscopy to diagnose it. I'm coming out of anesthesia and they're like, okay, yeah, you have this autoimmune disease. You'll have it for life. There's no cure. And I'm like, first of all, we should work on the bedside manner a little bit. But I mean, that's a wild thing to hear of just like, here's this thing you're going to have the rest of your life. And you have no idea how and when it's going to affect you and what that's going to look like. And I just remember sitting there having a very similar moment with God of like, I just don't understand. This does not feel like something that is going to help me live the life for you that I would like to, and especially this job that I love so much. Like, am I going to still be able to do these things? And it's one of the clearest times I felt like I heard from God, and I heard him say, if I have called you to it, I will equip you for it. Mm. And I just remember at the time being like, okay, I don't know what that's going to look like. But it just tells me that if God wants me to do it, I'll be able to do it. And if he doesn't, then I don't want to do it anyway. And, it was just now looking back, like that was such a dark time. It was very scary. It was months before I was kind of back into like normal. And here again, I'm having to fly to London for a game and I'm having to cover the whole NFL. And I'm like, I don't even know what this is going to look like. I'm not feeling great. I'm, all these things. And then of course, right as I kind of get it under control, COVID happens, and trying to deal with like the whole COVID pandemic with an autoimmune disease was its own challenge. So then right as we get into like 2021, where I'm like, okay, like we kind of got a handle on this. Like I know what's going on now. I actually got diagnosed with a second autoimmune disease that affects my joints and my back and my spine. And so then I had to get on like a new, medication that could try to treat both, where I was having to give myself injections every 2 weeks. And then through those injections, I started having really bad allergic reactions to them, where I was developing hives all over the place. So I'd be like on air doing an interview and suddenly start feeling like all these hives developing, feeling swelling, feeling the stuff. And I'd have to finish the interview, and then I'd have to go run out to my car with an ice bag and like Benadryl that I kept out there and like sit in my back seat for a bit to like ice those to try to make them go away. And it got to a point where it was just not sustainable. And so then I had to switch to a whole nother medication where now I have to go and get IV infusions that last 2 or 3 hours every 6 weeks. And it has just been a wild ride of there being something, therefore, like every year since 2019, whether it was like getting diagnosed with a new thing or new medicine or switching medicines or something. It's just every year there's been something with all of this. And I just always thought, like, what is this going to look like? What is my life going to look like? Am I going to get to do these jobs? Am I going to get married? Am I going to, all these questions. And now here I am, 5.5 years later. And, I have been able to do this job. I've gotten married. I've bought a house. I've won a Super Bowl ring, like all of these incredible things. And now I look at verses like, James 1:2 and the considering it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds because of the perseverance, and Romans 5:3, same thing. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that it produces endurance and character and hope. And I get to understand a bit about that now because, look, have I enjoyed all of this? Absolutely not. But I do believe that I've seen where now, like, I am a more empathetic person, knowing that you have no idea what people are going through. Like you said, Sam, like no one would have any idea of all of this if they're just watching Bucks content, that any of this is happening. So I'm more empathetic, not knowing what someone's going through. I'm very empathetic to people that have chronic pain or illness. I know how tough it is to go through that. And I also know, like, I'm stronger and can handle more than I would have thought. If you had told me all of this was going to happen, I'd have been like, nope, I can't do that. I'm not strong enough. I can't handle that. And to just learn that, no, like, you are stronger than, as long as, again, you lean on God for it. I couldn't have handled it on my own, but by leaning on God through it, I can handle more than I would have thought. And now I'm able to give back to other people that go through this, that I got to speak to a group of kids who all have it, that were going to a summer camp that are for kids who have one of my autoimmune diseases. And they got to ask me all these questions of, and they're so cute. These kids are like, what do you do if you have to go to the bathroom when you're on TV? Like, it was really adorable. But I get to talk to these kids going through it and give back. And so now it's really cool. I've gotten involved in the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and I'm on their gala board. So we're having a gala this fall here in Tampa, and they asked me to be their patient honoree, which was really, really special for me. So I'm going to get to give a speech at the gala and just talk about my experience and hope to try to encourage other people going through it. And, I'm just now so much more grateful for the blessings in my life, knowing how easily they could have gotten taken away. That the moment you see, like, it is so fragile, that the moment I'm going to the ER, I recognized that, like, it could all be taken away in that moment through nothing I did or didn't do. There are just sometimes circumstances where it happens. And when you recognize that, man, you are so grateful for the days you are healthy, the days you can do the things you want to do, the days that you recognize everything that could get taken away from you. So I can see all the ways that going through this has made me a better person, a stronger person, a better Christian, more reliant on God, closer to him. Because, man, when you have health stuff that you can't do anything about, you talk to God a whole lot. And so as much as I have not, it's not what I would wish on anybody, I can see the truth in those verses that talk about the way it can produce that endurance and character and hope.
Yeah, you
Casey,
talk,
sorry, Sam.
No, you got it, Clif.
Casey, you talk, and your chest has become your testimony. You know what? Life is 10% of what happens to us and 90% of how we respond. And your response is encouraging, and it's impactful just to hear your story. And I think a good friend of mine told me the event plus the response equals the outcome. And your response has been incredible. So thank you so much for sharing that. I just wanted to throw that out there. Sam, I know you had a question.
Well, no, I just even a comment, because we do at this podcast, we go first, give space, girl hope. What can you tell somebody, Casey, who is going through some hard stuff right now that needs some hope?
Yeah, I think it's that the hard times are the thing that will define you one way or the other. And kind of like what Clif was saying, the hard times happen to everybody. I've heard someone say you're either going into a storm, you're in a storm, or you're coming out of a storm. And so hard times are going to happen. And so the question is always about how we're going to respond to it. And what I think is nice to remember is that it's okay to not respond great every moment of every day. It's more about over the long haul, what direction are you heading? Are you overall like leaning into God, leaning into family, leaning into friends, leaning into who you want to be? I know there were times I beat myself up where there were days where I was just really sad. And I would sometimes feel bad about that, thinking like, oh, a real Christian would be able to, see the good in all of this and not be so. And I don't think that that's fair. And so I think it's the idea of understand where you want to go, understand that you don't want to be defeated by whatever this hard time is, and have your eyes set on that point of who you want to be in God, but give yourself the grace to know that you will not be perfect in your response every day. And that does not mean any less of you as a person or a character, because we do celebrate people that we see go through hard things and say, man, they're always still smiling, or they're always still in a great place. And it makes you feel pressure to be that happy, smiley, perfect face all the time. And so I would tell people, like, understand that the hardest thing is not the last thing, that there will be better days in some form. And frankly, even if it means after this life, like, that's the beauty of the hope that we have. At some point, there will be better days, and we hope they're sooner rather than later. But in the hard days, like, make your choice of who you want to be, and then give yourself grace when you don't always live up to that every single day.
Casey, I want to, thank you. Just dropping gems. We need to have like a Casey's Corner, right? You probably already have that. This already exists. But Casey, as I'm listening to you, I'm hearing a lot of, man, I was the first to do this and the first to do that, and this job wasn't created. And I'm also hearing, sure, like I was, there with Tom Brady and Robert Gronkowski and all these, Mike Evans. But you're like, man, the women on the Mystics, those are my heroes. What impact are you having on women in your world that a lot of us don't even know about?
Oh man, I'm not sure. I hope I am. Like I said, I sometimes do get to hear from either young girls whose parents reach out to me and talk about how much they love being able to show them my videos and how much their daughters love, watching my stuff, which is really cool. And I do get reached out to by, high school and college students who want to do this for a living and reach out, which also every time makes me feel old. And it's always so funny to me because I'm like, man, I feel like I was just that person. And I almost still feel like I am that person of like, man, I should reach out to so-and-so. And it's always funny to me when people reach out to me for career advice. I'm like, am I in a position to give that? It's so wild. But yeah, I think I just hope that I'm showing younger girls and other women that this is a wonderful job in life, and that it's not always this, really rough, horrible battle being a woman in this sphere, that we have made so much progress, that I'm so thankful to the women who went through what I view as the really hard stuff in the 80s and the 90s and really breaking down those barriers and doors for us that are now in it at this point, where have I had some weird things, and some not great things happen because I'm a woman in this sphere? Sure. But honestly, I feel like overall, like, we have made so much progress. And I think that I want women to see that, like, this is our space. This is our time of, whether it's women's sports or men's sports, like, you belong anywhere you want to be, anywhere that God decides you need to be. You belong there, and it can be an amazing ride that is just so much fun. And I want women to see also the way that I do it, of trying to put God first and trying to make sure that I put my character and values first, and that can be done around a world where sports, entertainment, media, they can try to tell you that you got to do things a certain way to have success. And that to try to show that, no, like, stay true to who you are. And like, actually, Todd Bowles just said this the other week. We have something here called the National Coaching Academy, where we help coaches try to break into the NFL because you know how it's such a like who you know kind of thing. So they bring whether high school, college, or international, you know, pro outside of NFL coaches get a chance to come in and learn from all of our staff. And Coach Bowles was talking to all of them. And that was actually the advice he gave was don't sacrifice who you are for what you want. And that's what I think I would want women to see watching me and to learn more than anything is just, don't sacrifice who you are for what you want in this industry.
That's great advice, Casey. I think the one thing that when I hear your story and know that your background is and working for the Bucs right now, I just feel like that you're living out your passion. At the same time, you have a great purpose. And again, it's super inspiring. I do want to know on your day-to-day job with the Tampa Bay Bucs, what is your most enjoyable part of the job and what is the least enjoyable part of the job?
Interesting. Okay, so I mean, the part I enjoy the most is just getting to learn the stories of the people that are here. I love when we get like, you know, a new player and I get to dive in trying to learn everything about them and find out all the interesting, cool things. And I love when I learn something about somebody that others don't know, because in today's day and age of media, it feels like every story's been told. And if I can find something that other people don't, and I love that. And so it got to happen with Coach Bowles last year, and it was one of my favorite moments. I learned that he had been a radio DJ in his playing days. And it was like incognito, like no one knew this was NFL player Todd Bowles at the time doing this. He was just like a radio DJ. And I was like, what was your name? Like your show name? And he was like, Land of Love. And I about died. I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. And I got his permission to let me share that. And I got to share it at this big event where Baker and Mike Evans and these guys are there with Todd on stage. And I got to deploy this information and watch all of them be like, what? Oh my, like, and that was so fun to watch, like that I got to help cultivate this bonding moment between players and coach and all of that. So like, I love when I get to find the ways to bring humor, to bring bonding, to bring joy, like all of that. Least favorite is my shows still all have to happen even if we lose. That's an unfortunate part of the job. I'm like, can I not have a clause that says I only have to do this if we win? Because let me tell you, going into a locker room right after a really bad loss and walking up to a player and going, hey, so you know that game that just happened? Do you want to talk about it with me for an hour tomorrow? Like that is by far my least favorite, is having to make that ask and even having to ask a guy to do that, where I'm like, let's relive that tomorrow, please, when you'd also probably rather be sleeping. Thank you. But thankfully that's where it's nice that I've been here a long time. I've built good relationships with the guys. They know I'm going to make it as painless as I possibly can. You know, we're not going to just sit here and dwell on whatever went wrong. We're going to move on. We're going to find good things to talk about. But yeah, that's definitely the part that is my least favorite.
That's so good. Casey, I've got so on this podcast, we talk about faith, talk about family, talk about football, talk about finance. I want to go back to the football piece, but not necessarily the Tampa Bay.
Oh, good.
Football.
I was real worried you were going to say the finance part, and I was like, oh no.
Not yet. We'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But the Olympics, flag football. We were chatting before, and you got really excited about saying, "Hey, let's dig in on that." So let's dig in a little bit. What are you most excited about for flag football and the Olympics?
First of all, again, as we established, Texas girl at heart, right? So, and also like my high school was, when you picture peak Texas high school football, this was my school. That my two quarterbacks in high school were Chase Daniel and Greg McElroy. Not too shabby.
You went to South Lake Carroll?
I did. See, this is everybody knows. I know. Look at that.
Trey,
so yeah, I went to South Lake Carroll, and I am telling you, if I could have played flag football, I would have been the happiest person in the world. The fact that this is now an option for so many girls in high school, and to then let them see an Olympics that they could have as a goal, I mean, it's unbelievable. Because even when I was first starting to play basketball, the WNBA was like just about to be formed. And to be playing a sport that you don't have this dream of, that so many people don't realize, like for little boys, they get to be like, oh yeah, I want to go to the NFL someday. I want to go to the NBA someday. To now know that there are all these kids, boys and girls, that are playing flag football that will now have this Olympics thing to look at on the global stage is so amazing. And I think it's going to be a really great opportunity, of course, for the NFL to grow its brand internationally. Like, to grow football internationally is incredible. But from a specifically like flag standpoint, I have grown to love it here because, first of all, so Florida was the first state to sanction girls flag as a high school varsity sport. They're very big into it here. And man, the Buccaneers are part of just the groundbreaking efforts on really supporting it and promoting girls flag, that especially Darcy Glazer-Kasowitz one of our owners, is just so passionate about this. So the Bucs host the largest girls flag football competition in the country every year, girls flag football preseason classic. The 7th annual one was this year, hosted a record 115 teams across 20 counties. It was wild watching how many of these teams that are here from Florida and other places. We also host a bunch of other flag events throughout the year. I have watched these girls and the passion they play and their skill level, and I'm like, man, I cannot wait for this to be highlighted. Thinking that some of these girls I'm watching, like, these are going to be some of the people that are on this Olympic team. And I am just so excited for women to have this as a goal to be looking at. And also, I love this. This was amazing to me. So the Bucs were the first to create an academic scholarship back in 2020 for girls who play organized football and are passionate about pursuing a career in sports. And it's called the She Is Football Scholarship. And a big part of it is this idea that there have been all these studies showing that there's a huge correlation between female participation in sports at the youth level and success later in life. 94% of female executives have participated in sports, but girls drop out of sports at twice the rate of boys. And so the Bucs really look at it as, man, like, our mission is to keep girls in the game. We have all this programming, accessibility, resources that we're trying to use our platform to create, these opportunities to develop these future leaders of tomorrow. And I feel like now the fact that the Olympics and the NFL and everyone is just getting on this flag football train for both men and women is going to be so fun. And we have just loved being on this ground floor of this new sport that is just sweeping now, not just the nation, but the world. And then, like, come on, we're all dreaming of the NFL, guys. We're excited to maybe play, right? I mean, I will be interested to see, like, there are people who have been dedicated to playing flag football. It is not a guarantee that it's going to be a team full of NFL players. That there's a whole lot of these flag football players that this is what they've been doing. So that, to me, is going to be so fun to watch, is how many NFL guys earn a spot, how many are people that have already just been playing flag, and the strategy behind it. Because I think it's going to be a blast to watch.
I got to ask, Casey, as we finish up here, tell me about your Tampa Bay Bucs this year. Tell me about the team, the outlook, and just even a little bit about their draft class that they're bringing in this season.
Man, let me tell you, I am fired up about this year. And I'm not just saying that. Like, I know that I work for the team.
If you weren't, could you tell us?
I get it. I get that I work for the team. I am not just saying that. First of all, I mean, our whole starting offense is back. That is almost unheard of in the NFL, to bring literally every single offensive starter back. And then now, of course, we keep, losing our offensive coordinators to these head coaching jobs because, they've been doing a great job here, which is awesome. But man, how nice that even though we lose our offensive coordinator, we get to promote one from within. So you get to keep that consistency and that continuity, which, Baker Mayfield was like, thank goodness that poor man has had more coordinators than any. I mean, it's unreal. And so to have Baker have that confidence and continuity, to have the whole offensive line now that have all played together for a whole year, that run game that went from almost worst to almost first last year, no reason to think it's not going to look just as good this year. So everything offensively, we saw that was clicking last year. And then now defensively, you bring in Hassan Reddick, which I think is going to be really fun to watch. And I'd love to hear Sam's thoughts on what that might bring as an outside linebacker himself. But, Todd Bowles, like, he can dial it up no matter who is playing for him. That man loves to scheme. And I mean, Vita Vea is dropping in coverage randomly. Like, you just don't know. You never know what Todd Bowles is going to do. So the defense, I think that's going to be interesting to watch. You know, maybe seeing guys like you still have Levante there in the middle holding it down after all these years playing it, just like, I mean, defying father time. And then to see, man, how's it going to look when we got a younger guy coming in next to him, maybe in Servassier Dennis. We got a couple people fighting for some of those spots. And then our draft class, you brought them up. I cannot say enough amazing things about our first round draft pick, Emeka. He is, let me tell you, someone you should have on your podcast. The man is definitely very passionate about his faith. And I don't know how many times in my whole career I have heard scouting staffs talk about players like they talked about Emeka. Just that they were like, this kid, I mean, so mature, head on the right way, like plays the game the right way, that they were just like, this, we got to have this guy. Because even when you look at the fact that it was not the position of biggest need, that's where you know they were just like, no, this guy, like, we believe in this guy. And I think for him to get to come in and learn under Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, I mean, good grief. Like, you cannot ask for a better masterclass than that. So that's going to be a blast. And then, man, I think that they found some gems on defense. I think that the back-to-back corners that we took, Parrish and Morrison, I think I'm really excited about them. Especially Jacob Parrish has already made a couple picks, already had a couple people in practice being like, okay. And then Morrison, I think, is a steal just because he had health issues last year. I think he'd have been a first rounder. I think he'd have been I think we got a steal being willing to wait on this, health stuff that's going on. I mean, we got Walker, who I think is another, again, I'd love to hear the outside edge rusher thoughts you have over here. But I mean, the guy had about a billion sacks in college, just so productive. And so I look at kind of these mid-round, and I've watched that Jason Light and his staff, they have been able to build through a lot of these mid-round picks over the years really effectively. So I think that they felt like everybody expected them to go defense first round. And I think they felt like they got to still get this guy they couldn't let pass while still addressing the defensive areas that they felt like they needed to do. So I think that there is no reason for us to not feel like, I mean, there's no reason we shouldn't be at least as good as we were last year. And I feel like there's a lot of ways where I'm like, man, I think we feel really great about it, and it's going to be a fun year. And just the camaraderie, the guys on this team, it's unreal. I mean, they all would die for Baker. Like, they would run into oncoming traffic for that man. And that is a cool thing to have in a quarterback. And I think that just the way the offensive line, they are never not together. They move as a blob, as a unit. And those are the two things you want as a team. When your offensive line are best buds and always together, and that they would literally take a bullet for their quarterback, you're going to go a long way.
That is so good. Dang, now we see why Casey does what she does. It ain't just, oh my good. I mean, and so much insight. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's one of the things that people don't realize is, like, you're a part of the fabric of the team. Like, as much as it's, players and coaches, it's like you are like, you travel with the team. You're in the locker room. You're in the facility. And so this insight that you're providing, I mean, I've listened to stories about Emeka Egbuka and kind of his background. You remind me of Benjamin Morrison, right? Who would have been a first round pick if not for the injury. I'm getting excited now. And also, by the way, I think y'all haven't lost the division since I got there, right? So like the last 4 or 5 years. And so, man, I'm hyped now. Clif, we need to go, I need to put pads on again, put the jersey on again.
Let's do it.
Yes. So before we go, I think what I want to do right now, I know we had the clip notes earlier, but Casey, you've shared so much. You've dropped so many gems in Casey's corner. But as many gems as you've dropped, Clif, if you could just kind of recap again for us some high-level lessons that you've learned, some clip notes for everyone that's listening before we say goodbye.
Yes, I think my takeaway from hearing Casey's story, obviously, and again, it's full of passion and purpose, but it's literally how she has fought the good fight and how she's going to finish the race. But it's more importantly about life being 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond. As she's talking about her autoimmune disease, as she's talking about her ACL, as she's talking about many setbacks that she has faced, she still has a smile on her face and joy in her heart. And what I love more than anything is how this podcast started. You guys talking about being the salt and the light. And Sam, that's exactly what you are. That's what you were in that locker room in Tampa Bay with the Bucs. And Casey, that's exactly what you are each and every day as well. And that's why I believe the two of you guys connected and hit it off there in Tampa Bay. And Casey, that's why you're on our podcast this afternoon.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah. And thank you guys so much for having me. It's been an honor and a blessing and just so cool to Clif get to meet you and Sam to get to chat with you again. And it's just been so cool for me to watch you and on your just incredible media rise over the years. And every time you pop on my TV, I'm just like, oh, look at Sam. He's crushing it. Just absolutely crushing the game. So just so excited for you and what you've been able to accomplish since you left football.
Well, I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm learning from you. I'm learning from you, watching you walk with integrity. Watching you walk from before I even knew I was going to go and do TV. I saw you and I'm seeing you walk in integrity when no one is watching. And that to me stands out so much more than all the likes and retweets and, oh, I got this scoop. You walk in and with integrity. Clif said it. You are salt and you are light, right? The salt of the earth, the salt of the world, right? Like you preserve the taste of things. You're like in an industry that's decaying, you're keeping it from decaying. You're salt, you're light in a dark place, not just in a locker room, but in media. Look at where media is going. Media is a really dark place, and yet you are a light. So it's no wonder why so many young people are looking to you for advice. And you're a young person in your own right? We're not saying you're old, but so many young people are looking to you because they're like, man, they know light when they see it. You can't deny light, right? You taste salt. You know that taste. And so really from me to you, thank you for being salt and light. Even when I didn't even know that this is what I was going to do, you're still leading the way and being a guide for not just young women or young men, but people who are currently in your industry trying to learn how to do it with grace. And so thank you, Casey, for joining the Sam Acho podcast. And I mean, I do want to give you space for the last word, if you'll allow me. I want to give you space to kind of share the last word with us.
Oh man, so much pressure on the last word. No, I just think I think that it's amazing to just realize that as long as we really do, like I said, work like it depends on you, pray like it depends on God, like everything is going to work out and be better than you ever imagined. And I say that as someone who had things happen to me that are not what I would have planned. Like I would not have planned to have autoimmune issues and all these different things in the way that I sometimes hate that it might affect, my husband and my family or different things. But like, I know for a fact that everything really does, like God can use everything for good. Even if God does not cause the bad thing to happen, like he can use all of it for good. And so whatever people are going through, know that if you choose to pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, that God's going to be able to show you the ways that thing can be used for good and that you can help other people and make a difference in the world, maybe because of that hard thing.
That's so good. Well, on behalf of Casey Phillips, Clif Marshall, I'm Sam Acho. Thank you so much for joining the Sam Acho podcast. Make sure to go to samacho.com to find all the resources for this podcast and also hear more about Casey's story. We'll see you next time.